Hello and welcome to Smash Hit Sports. And college football had a hell of a week 5. There were a lot of really good games. The early slate wasn't incredible. Like the noon slate was okay. But there were some damn good games to end the evening. There's a lot we have to talk about. This next week's slate looks really good too. Like week 6 looks awesome. And both of our teams won. So the sad boy hours are over. We're back.
Yeah, we're so back. So like you said, the noon games, I didn't know how to feel. I was watching Clemson play. I'm proud that I was able to successfully light a fire under them. They came out, they looked good.
You did.
They won the turnover battle, and if they do that, they win. That's just what happens. So, but then, 3:30 comes along, and I'm like, what game do I choose? I end up choosing Georgia-Auburn. I'm so happy I did because that game was just like pure SEC football on CBS. It was awesome, like really close. It was October, right? It just felt great.
Yeah, October is peak football, I think, because you're getting into the start of conference play. You're getting into like some of these really good matchups. We now have an idea of like what teams are. Like we know who's real. We kind of know who's fake. And it's also soup season, which is just top tier. Love a good soup.
What do you mean by that? I'm not familiar.
Like soup? Like
like eating soup.
Yeah.
Okay.
I
thought that was
season.
some acronym for something in college football, but yeah, it's soup season for dinner.
I love soup. Fuck
you,
you,
like
Nick,
soup.
dude. There's a lot of hostility coming from your end of the microphone today.
No,
that was totally uncalled for.
Like, what is soup? Like, do you mean like what does that stand for? But yeah, no, it is soup season. It's sweater weather. You could have maybe
pumpkin spice. You want me to throw out the pumpkin spice thing first, dude?
Yeah, and then if you follow it with soup, I'd be like, yeah, you're right. It is soup season. But I didn't know we were talking about the non-football things. But yeah, it is. And I like chili. Chili is a good fall meal.
Yeah,
we could maybe rank them down the road. But
yeah, that would make for good rankings. Speaking of rankings, we had a couple ranked teams kind of show who they were. Let's talk about. I hate to do this. I hate to talk about Brian Kelly like this. It pains me as a lifelong fan of Brian Kelly and a huge Brian Kelly enjoyer. You hate to see what you manifest come into fruition. And big game Brian Kelly has been something that I have talked about for years. I talked about it when he was the Notre Dame head coach, and I talked about it last year, and I talked about it again this year when we did our SEC preview and we talked about LSU. Big game Brian Kelly shows up in big games. He chokes. And that's exactly what happened Saturday night against Ole Miss, in Ole Miss. That place was bonkers. They were throwing beer cans on the field. And LSU, kind of frauds. Not kind of. They're frauds. They were never a top 5 team.
No, of course not. And again, those are 2 losses that are not, I feel like it's 2 good losses. Like people are complaining that they're ranked. I don't have them ranked, but I get it because you lose at Ole Miss and then you lose to Florida State, but the game's in Orlando, so it's kind of like it's tough. And the Ole Miss game, I mean, they easily could have won if they could play a lick of defense or if they managed to, score at the end of the game. Because for a while, I feel like both of us were saying whoever has the ball last is going to win the game. LSU had the ball last.
Yep.
And of course, like the first play with 40 seconds left, a 40-yard pass play, they get all the way down to the 30. I'm thinking like they're going to do it. They're going to win this game, but they don't. They're fraudulent in the sense that they were never top 5. They shouldn't have been top 5, but I still think they're a very talented team and they could compete for the SEC West easily still, They only have one conference loss.
I want to put this out there. I've seen some people say that and we could talk about it too in the reading the hot takes, because somebody mentioned this in the hot takes thing. They said that there will be a 2-loss team in the college football playoff this year. I just think that's not true at all. And I understand the thought, like if LSU goes and they win out and they beat Texas A&M and Alabama and Georgia, like that they'll have a really impressive resume. And that is true. But at the same time, if you have like this really impressive resume, like we could absolutely see an undefeated Pac-12 team and then a one-loss Pac-12 team. And you're like, all right, now who do you put? Are you going to put in a 2-loss SEC champion in over one of those Pac-12? Like I wouldn't. Like it's not, especially with how the SEC has looked this year.
Fair, but I do think that there's a little bit of SEC bias, that'll always exist. But I mean, think about it. In 2007, the craziest college football season of all time, right?
Yep.
It was BCS, so we only had 2 teams in the national championship game. I think one of them had 2 losses.
Yeah.
And I think it was LSU.
Yep.
And like if it was a 4-team playoff, you're going to see like pretty much every team had 2 losses because everyone was beating up on each other. And it's too early to tell if that's going to happen here, and I doubt it does. But we have seen a lot more parity this year than we have in years past. So I'm not saying that that's impossible. Maybe it's a little bit of false hope because my Clemson Tigers do have 2 losses. I know Clemson's not nearly good enough to do it, but I do think that like there's a scenario where teams just start losing to each other, and you look at the end of the season, you're like, oh my God, what a crazy season. All these teams have 2 losses. What do we do? So I don't think that's that hot of a take. I kind of like it.
Fair. I do want to throw one last insult stat at Brian Kelly. Brian Kelly and LSU are 4-4 in their last 8 games.
Yeah.
That's
not good.
That's not great. It's not great.
No. And I know, going into Brian Kelly's tenure, it was like LSU wasn't considered, top of the top. And then he, beats Alabama and sort of gets them to be way overhyped this year. So I think you're more of a hater than I am. Brian Kelly is a dork, right? Like he, the way
my family.
Yeah, the way he, poses with his recruits and all that. Like, I don't like him either, but I do think that LSU is a pretty good team. They'll finish strong, and Brian Kelly shouldn't be on the hot seat or anything. Even if he's 4-4 in the last 8 games.
Yep, I do think that they have some really important games coming up against Alabama and Texas A&M here in the next coming weeks. But I want to talk about a game real quickly that we don't have in our little list here. But you said something that reminded me of it, teams kind of cannibalizing themselves. Utah with a conference loss now. It is very, very apparent after watching that game, which is a great Friday night game, Utah, Oregon State, ton of great defense. Smith is a great coach. Like DJU didn't play phenomenally, but he didn't need to. Like they shut Utah down offensively.
Yeah.
They are missing Cam Rising so badly. Like
I'm so confused. Is Cam Rising even going to play this year?
I don't know.
At this point, I feel like he might not. This is crazy.
It is.
I went into that game, thinking I'm going to take Utah. I think both of us took Utah because we record early. It's Monday right now.
Yep.
And at the time, it was like, well, we thought Cam Rising was playing 2-3 weeks ago.
Yeah, and
no
then he still never
way
showed up.
He doesn't play this week, and he doesn't show up. I turn on the game. I'm like, wait, what? He's not playing? And then, of course, Utah's offense looks pretty bad. Lots of dropped passes. Like, their third-string guy, Barnes, came in, looked pretty good. But in general, it's a great example of Pac-12 teams that we still don't know how good they are, because they're just like Utah can go dominate UCLA defensively, but then lose to Oregon State, and it's just that stuff's going to keep happening in that conference.
Yeah, and until they get Cam Rising back, I think Utah's in that next tier, the Washington State, Oregon States, UCLA's of the conference. They're not in the USC, Washington, Oregon tier.
I agree.
Let's talk about a game that I was speechless the entire fourth quarter. I did not have this. We didn't have this game on like our picks. Like we didn't think it was going to be some sort of like crazy game. I thought UCF would kind of win this pretty handedly. It was in the bounce house. But Baylor, I believe the score was 35-10 going into the fourth quarter.
I think 35-7 at
35-7.
At one point, maybe not in the fourth, but yeah.
Baylor just went bananas in the fourth quarter. They had a play, I believe it was fourth down, where, you know, in Madden, where you're just like, oh, fuck it, I'll just keep like running back around as the quarterback and like the defensive lineman won't be able to catch me and then I'll just heave it downfield. They did that and it worked. Like in real life, I've never seen anything like it actually happen. It was an unbelievable comeback. Like what
that was UCF that had the
That was
Madden
UCF
play.
That did that?
Yeah. Yes.
That was crazy.
That's what I'm saying though. Like it was the most incomprehensible game ever because if we had that on our game picks or anything, like I'm slamming UCF. Yep. I remember looking at the halftime score because there were a lot of other games on. Tennessee, South Carolina, LSU, Notre Dame was on. And I saw at halftime it's 35-7. And I'm like, oh my God, Baylor is just so bad. Dave Aranda's gone. And then out of nowhere, they are storming back and they're down a touchdown and UCF fumbles. Baylor takes it to the house and take the lead. And I'm like, wait, what the hell? And then UCF is like fourth and forever. Like, I'm like, oh my God, they're going to lose. And then I forget the quarterback's name, but it's their backup. But yeah, he has the Madden play where it's like 30 seconds in the behind the line of scrimmage, just fighting for his life. And then he completes it. The announcer on the call is the infamous Charlotte Hornets announcer who everyone loves because
that's like, that dude.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
Yeah, Gus Johnson on steroids, right? So it's like when they complete this fourth down, one of the craziest plays of the year. The guy, I think his name's like Eric something, but he freaks out. It's amazing, goosebumps all over. But then Baylor pulls it out, and Dave Aranda saves his job.
Wow,
so, crazy game.
It was. I don't know how I feel about UCF. Like they were due for one of these. You know, they were due for one of these weird losses. We talked about it in our preseason preview that like UCF was going to lose 2 or 3 games that you were just like, wait, what? And yeah, turns out this is one of them. I think you called that actually like on the nail.
Yeah, I actually might have had them losing to Baylor, but I definitely, when I did my game by game for UCF, I was like, I think they beat Oklahoma. I think they beat Kansas State or whoever, but they're going to lose like a weird one to Cincinnati and they're going to lose to Baylor and they're, you know, but I like UCF. I still like UCF, but that's just like your opening Big 12 play at home and to lose like that is just dreadful. So I'm a bit disappointed in them considering how high I had them ranked at the end of the year.
Yeah, especially in a home game, but I got to splurge and talk about the Irish a little bit. I wrote in the notes just literally just one line for this game, and it's Audric Estime is the best running back in the country, which is true. I mean, he is
it might be
like the best running back in the country. Notre Dame had every opportunity to lose this game. Their play calling looked like it was from 1965. Like it was just the most bland, predictable shit that I've ever seen. And at the end of the game, Sam Hartman put his nuts on the table, fourth down. And I don't know if you watched this game at all, but fourth down.
Yeah, I had it. Yeah.
They ran a pass play, and he rolls out to his right. Nothing's open. You could see him looking downfield, and he just does it himself, puts his body on the line, gets the play. And if that play had happened in the Ohio State game, it would have been like that. That is his moment. That is his Heisman moment. Instead, it happened against Duke. And like I had some people being like, because I said this was a really good win for Notre Dame. Like, obviously the score didn't reflect it. We covered the spread, but like we had to go for 2 in order to do it at the end of the game. But this was a really good win for the Irish. Duke is a damn good team, especially at home. We saw them, what they did to Clemson at home. Like, to go into Duke's place and win that game, like Mike Elko's a hell of a coach. That was a good win. I understand that it's Duke, but if you take what the product on the field and just remove the logos from the helmets, that was a good win.
Yeah, I mean, contextually, right, Duke has game day. They I don't know if they've ever had game day ever.
They have had it before, but yeah.
Still, it's not the school you think about. Like the students there are like, oh my God, we have game day. Oh my God.
Yep.
They freak out. Like that student section's, believing that this is their year. They go, They're playing Notre Dame. They want to kick them out of the CFP contention. And I was definitely surprised. Like, Duke showed a ton of heart. Because I thought Notre Dame at halftime was just defensively overwhelming them, and it was just not going to beat Duke's day. Duke comes back, they take the lead.
Yep.
I was shocked. And then again, it's one of the top 5 games of the week, in my opinion, just from that fourth quarter. The way it ended was crazy. Super sad Riley Leonard got hurt. I hope he's okay.
Yeah. Yep.
But, yeah, I mean, fantastic game. And like, Notre Dame still, after that and after Ohio State, 2 games where you kind of struggled to score, you still have a top 10 adjusted offensive efficiency in college football, which is impressive. I was shocked by that stat. But, yeah, I mean, Notre Dame, as far as, being efficient on offense, you're right up there with everyone else in college football. Estime's a beast. There's a couple other guys that I think have really impressed me as well. Ray Davis for Kentucky just went off.
What a game.
Yeah, he went crazy. DJ Giddens is Kansas State's running back. They had a bye this week, but 2 weeks ago he went off for like 4 touchdowns, 300 yards. It was unbelievable. Quinshon Judkins looked really good against LSU. There's enough running backs out there where I think Estime's right in that clump. And definitely a couple of those guys could boost their way up to a Heisman. But I don't know right now. So.
Yep. I just want to Duke's schedule. So they have a bye next week. Hopefully Riley Leonard gets healthy within the next week or 2. It didn't sound like reports after the games. It didn't sound like a damning injury, like he's out for the year or anything.
Right.
But then they get NC State at home, and then they go to Florida State. Like nobody's talking about it. That could be an ACC championship preview game. Like, that's not.
Yeah.
Because Duke, the loss to Notre Dame sucks, but they still are a 1-loss team. Like, they could lose to Florida State and finish the season. They play Louisville, Wake Forest, UNC, Virginia, Pittsburgh. None of those teams are absolutely frightening. Like, UNC's looked pretty good, but they could have 1 conference loss. That's not it's not out of the question.
Yeah.
So
no, the ACC is pretty juicy. It's juicy this year. There's a lot of games that are going to matter. Where in the past 5-6 years, it's been Clemson doesn't lose in the ACC, and then whoever is fighting for that ACC championship berth that they inevitably lose.
Yep.
So it's going to be really juicy this year. But then I also saw a stat, Notre Dame, obviously not in the ACC in football, but is 30 straight wins against ACC opponents. That
30 straight.
Is unbelievable.
Join a conference.
You
would never be as good as you are if you joined a conference.
Because where does that date back to? Because Clemson beat you all in 2020.
Yeah, so when you beat us in 2020, I believe, and correct me if I'm wrong, but when you beat us in 2020, that was the conference championship game. So that stat is very select season. In regular season ACC games, because I believe we also lost to Clemson in the college. I forget who we lost to in the college football playoff. Maybe it was Clemson again.
You lost to Clemson in 2019 in the college football playoff.
So it is a very selective stat in where it's saying ACC regular season ACC matchups.
Do you know where it dates back to? Because 2015 Clemson beat Notre Dame.
Yeah, I would assume it's right around that area, just because we are mandated to play 4 a year. Under we signed a contract with the ACC where we play 4 ACC games a year at least. So it does.
Yeah, I feel like you have more this year, right?
I'm not sure,
because
we've always played Pitt. You
had Clemson, NC State, Louisville, and Duke so far.
Yep.
That might be all of them, but your last regular season loss to an ACC team was Miami in 2017.
Yep, and that game ruined our college football playoff hopes then too, because Braxton Berrios went fucking ham for Miami. He was dripped out too. He had all the armbands, the visors. He was the drippiest white dude in Dade County that night, and they whooped our ass.
That's sick. Sick that he's on the Dolphins now too. He's just loving his Miami life. But yeah, I mean, that's crazy. That's 6 years where you play 4 a year and haven't lost since 2017. very impressive.
Yep.
But we'll see because we got Clemson on the schedule.
Yep.
So
Should be good. I mean, I'm not sleeping against. They play at Louisville this week. That'll be a good game.
no, yeah, you can't sleep on that either.
Yeah, but let's talk about the Florida team. I love you put the notes here. F is for Florida was fraudulent. U is for USC's defense will be their downfall, and N is for Neil Brown fully off the hot seat. Just a good SpongeBob reference.
Yeah, you had Florida, USC, and Neil Brown, and I just looked at it. I was like, oh, FUN. Like, maybe Cody and I will sing a song. F is for Florida, who was fraudulent. U is for USC. But yeah, no, Florida definitely fraudulent.
Yeah, SpongeBob references never get old, but
no, not at all.
I don't mean to talk condescending to the Florida fans who are in my DMs and my comments or whatever, but they're like, hey, we won against Tennessee, like put some respect on our name. I was like, we cannot I'm not going to, and this goes for all teams, I'm not going to throw out my thoughts on an entire team based on one game. Like, very rarely will I ever do that. And I didn't do it with Clemson. I probably should have done it with Clemson. Like, I didn't do it with Florida. Like, and I'm glad that I didn't because, damn it, they're not good. Like, Graham Mertz is who he is. Like, I still think Florida will struggle to make a bowl game. Their schedule does not get any easier.
I know. We talked about it in our SEC preview. I had Florida going 4-2 and then losing 6 straight games. Yep. Right? Like, I feel like when they beat Tennessee, I was kind of surprised they got ranked, and then I let the Florida fans kind of creep into my mind. I was also not very high on Kentucky, and I think in my game-by-game breakdowns back in August, I had Florida beating Kentucky. But I was also like, oh, you know what? Florida is a bit better than I thought they were. Like, I didn't do as good of a job as you because I forgot that Florida fans are some of the most delusional in college football in the sense that they're just like, well, we're Florida. We're always going to be up there. We're always competitive. Yep. It's like, no. Like, I get that you have the passion, but it's not, your team's not good enough and you have a gauntlet of a schedule. Yeah. So I think 6-6, maybe 5-7 right now is where I'm at.
Yeah. I'll still stick with that prediction. I think I had them going like 4-8. I don't think I'll bump it up to 5-7, 6-6.
I had them 4-8 to start the year. They're still, they are a little better than I thought. I saw it even in the Utah game. I was like, okay, their defense isn't that bad. They're getting some things they want. And then Tennessee, I think Tennessee's a bit underrated still. Like, that was just a really bad showing. We talked about that last week, but yeah, Florida. Sorry, Florida fans listening, but you got to accept your fate.
I want to ask you this question honestly and sincerely. How does Alex Grinch still have a job as the USC defensive coordinator? He's been the defensive coordinator under Lincoln Riley when he was at Oklahoma too. Like, his defenses have never been not good. They've never been passable. Like, what do we do? We're about to watch one of the greatest quarterbacks in college football go like 9-3 because of his defense.
Well, not so fast because they're undefeated. And that's my championship pick. But, I would love if USC or if Lincoln Riley ever really had, like, another defensive coordinator that we could compare him to. Because I'm thinking deep down, maybe it's just Lincoln Riley prefers to run some sort of offense where it's like, we want the offense back on the field immediately. So if you can't stop them for a 3 and out, well, whatever. Just go let them score so we can get our offense back out there. Because he's always just been so, like, let's put up 60 points oriented. And I feel like it's hard to do that when your defense is kind of like a juggernaut or even like a competent defense that lets a team drive, but then you stop them at like your own 40 or something on 4th down, or they miss a field goal, blah, blah, blah. USC is not like that. USC is boom or bust on defense. I do think they just kind of stopped trying a little bit against Colorado so that Colorado could run up the score a little bit and make that a close game. Still not what you want because it was much closer than it should have been. But it wasn't a 4-quarter defensive meltdown for USC that a lot of people are pretending it was because I really think they were just dominating that game the same way Oregon was for a while.
Yeah, and that's what I think that's the difference between those two teams is their defense, and that's why Oregon hopped USC in the AP poll this week. I believe in Oregon's defense more than I believe in USC's, and we'll see if that, ends up coming to bite them in the ass. It could.
We'll see. That's what we're saying, though. Pac-12s, they're all going to play each other.
So good. Their schedule coming up is great. Like, they play Arizona next week, but then after that, it's like Notre Dame, Utah, or they have Oregon and UCLA on the back end yet. Washington's in there somewhere. Like, it'll be a lot of fun.
Yeah.
I want to talk about Neil Brown, and this is going to be my apology statement. Neil Brown, I was wrong, and I'm sorry because I wrote you off and you didn't write back. There are a lot of when you are in the talking about sports and trying to make predictions business that our dumbasses are, you're gonna get things incorrect. I'll admit it. I don't think I've ever been as incorrect as I have been about Neil Brown. And I'm not I still think West Virginia is probably going to go 6-6, 7-5. I don't think they're, going to win the conference. But that being said, I thought West Virginia was going to be the worst team in the Big 12. And they have fought and kicked a whole lot of ass. I was dead wrong. I thought TCU was going to beat them by 15. And West Virginia, man, yeah, you have shown all the fight in the world. Neil Brown, you have looked like a good, maybe not a good coach, but I don't think you're anywhere close to losing your job. So to West Virginia fans, I apologize. To Neil Brown, I apologize. Yeah.
No, I'm kind of in the same boat. I think I didn't know as much about sort of what was going on in West Virginia. I didn't take that much interest in it in the offseason. So I piggybacked a little bit off you, but I did my own, fair share of research and just kind of settled on they're not making a bowl game. They're not a good team. And I mean, again, like you're saying, I still don't really think that they are. But the Big 12 is a bit worse than we thought, right? Texas Tech isn't really that good. Mm-hmm. TCU isn't really that good. We really should have known when West Virginia was playing Penn State on the road tough in week 1. I thought oh man, maybe Penn State's just, a bit overhyped or what's going on, first game jitters. But that game was like a close-ish game for a while there. And I was just this is kind of weird. West Virginia should be getting blown out 42-0. And so, yeah, they are definitely exceeding expectations. And I think it's a good story for college football because even us now, we're still saying this is a 6-6 team, maybe if that. So it'd be really cool at the end of the year if they go 9-3 somehow, and it's wow, West Virginia, what a miraculous season.
And you know what? They could.
Yeah,
I'm not going to put it against them.
I mean, they have Cincinnati, BYU, Houston, Baylor, Oklahoma State.
All winnable games. All winnable games. So we'll see. The Big 12 is a really interesting conference. I don't know what to make of the bottom because the bottom is not. It's bad. Oklahoma State.
We knew it was going to be chaotic. We knew it was going to be chaotic just because that's why we did it last in our previews because it was let's save the most chaotic for last. But we're definitely going to see things start to spice up in the Big 12 just now that we're playing conference play.
Yeah. Last conference we really want to talk about here, Big Ten. The Big Ten East. You have Penn State blew the doors off of Northwestern. Granted, late. It was tied at halftime, but they put their foot on their throat in the second half. Michigan made Nebraska look like it didn't belong in the same sport. And then Ohio State was on a bye, but they're coming off a win against Notre Dame. The Big Ten East is incredible. I think I would take all three of those Big Ten East teams over any other team in the country right now.
Well, what's great about it is that you also can throw Maryland in there, who is probably the fourth best team in the conference right now.
They should be ranked. Why is Maryland not ranked?
Yeah, no, it's stupid they're not ranked. They've been handedly beating teams.
Yes.
And they're the only undefeated Power 5 team that's not ranked.
Yeah.
I have them in my ranking. I have them at like 18. I think I had them ranked last week. Then they go in, they kick the brakes off of Indiana, and I moved them all the way up to like 18.
Yeah.
I'm like, this team's really good. Tagovailoa is having a underrated Heisman-esque season. And yeah, they're not ranked. And that's why when we get into that, I'm going to be, talking about how they got a chip on their shoulder this week because they have a huge game this week. And trust me, they don't like that they're not ranked.
Let's talk about this week's predictions. Last week, I went 10-2 on my predictions. You went 6-6. This was a big week for me. You were ahead coming into it, and I put on, or maybe we were tied going into it. But
I was ahead like all season long. I was ahead, and then you tied it. I went 6-6 last week too, and then this week 6-6. The thing is, we try to like differ on at least enough picks for it not to just be a useless graphic.
Yep.
But the 4 picks that we differed on, you got all of them right. I got all of them wrong, and like that was just brutal.
It's the way she goes.
And like I'm not like mad about it because I didn't treat this week of predictions as seriously as some, considering I had Syracuse beating Clemson. For illogical reasons.
You lost your pick, but you put some fight in your guys and they won. That is a win in of itself.
No, it was smart. I made a smart decision with that. I had to pick Syracuse. We threw in JMU South Alabama just because we thought it'd be a close game. I didn't want to take the team you were taking. You took JMU. I took South Alabama. The ones like I truly got wrong, like Florida, you had Kentucky. I definitely thought Florida was going to win. And then LSU, I thought LSU was going to win. And that game was a coin flip, pretty much.
Yep.
So I'm not so super beat up about it, but it sucks being down 4 here midway through the season.
Let's get into this week's slate though, because there's some really good games. A lot like the early slate. Last week the back end was really good. This week the early slate's really good. I will say this week we have college football on Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday as well. No really marquee games, but if you are a type of fan like I am, like they will be on the TV on Wednesday. Like there's not a doubt in my mind. But that being said,
mostly just because what else are you watching on Wednesday?
Yeah.
Like if you're not doing
the Golden
anything,
Bachelor, I'm not watching that.
No,
come on.
No, thank you.
So even though all right, tangent, the Golden Bachelor is like 2 hours from where I live. Crazy.
Wait, really?
Yeah.
Oh, damn.
Indiana. Shout out.
Yeah, I
Go
thought
Hoosiers,
certainly it was
baby.
in Cali, but
it's
wild.
hosted in Cali, but the guy is from Indiana. Give me a break. Yeah.
Okay. Oh,
Yeah.
so the Golden Bachelor, the guy, is from Indiana. I thought you meant like they're shooting it in Indiana. I'm like, that's crazy, man.
No, not at all.
Wow.
Not at all.
All right, let's get into these games.
Yep. We got to start with the Red River Shootout. It's the biggest game of the weekend. College Game Day has announced that they're going there, and I feel like a lot of times they announce that they're going to this game just because of the rivalry. These are now 2 5-0 teams duking it out, like neutral site. Oklahoma is 12. Texas is 3rd. Texas is a 6-point favorite. This should be an awesome game. Really believe this will be a great game.
This is the game of the week for sure. Like Game Day had no other option. This is honestly, in my opinion, makes the slate. I'm a little bit bummed it's at noon, but at the same time, I'm pumped to be able to like throw on the LSU Missouri game, Maryland Ohio State, Oklahoma Texas, and just have like 3 great games when I wake up on Saturday.
Yeah, and I want to give a little shine to Dylan Gabriel. He's played really well, and when he has played Oklahoma, even last season when he has played for the Sooners, Oklahoma's looked good. He continues to look good. This is where I think we're going to find the difference between these two teams, because Oklahoma has not played a damn soul. The teams that they have played have been awful. The Texas -6 is actually one of my favorite bets of the weekend. So I'll just go ahead and talk about it now. Oklahoma is 5-0 against the spread, but they have beat Arkansas State, SMU, Tulsa, Cincinnati, and Iowa State. None of those teams are any good. Texas has the second most efficient defense in the country. A lot of their talk has been about their offense and what that offensive line has done, what Quinn Ewers has done, what Xavier Worthy has done. But nobody's talking about how
their defense is the story. Yeah.
Their defense is damn good. They held Kansas, which is a good offense. They held Kansas to 14 points in Lawrence, Kansas.
We nailed that prediction. I think that was one of my favorite bets of the week was the under in that game.
Yep.
Just because I think like Kansas's team total was really high, and it was just like they're underestimating the fact that Texas's defense is going to overwhelm Kansas like abundantly, and that's exactly what happened. Kansas finished with 14 points. Of course, Jalen Daniels didn't play, and so it's kind of a different story. But that Bean kid looks pretty good.
Yeah.
Regardless. Yeah. And yeah, I mean, Texas won outright by a lot. Not surprised at all. Texas is really, really good. Oklahoma, in my own personal rankings, I didn't have that high for the reason you're talking about. They didn't play anyone. But their offense, like they were beating teams like SMU 20-6. Like they were kind of like I wasn't getting that like electricity from Oklahoma. But then they put up 50 on Iowa State, and Dylan Gabriel looked fantastic. And now I'm like, okay, Oklahoma, they deserve to be fringe top 10. I get it.
Yep. Yeah. That being said, I'm still taking Texas in this game. Give me Texas -6. Win outright.
I like Texas a lot. I have Texas, I think, making the CFP for me. And I think they could lose this and still make it. But this is just such a big game that if they're going to be one of the top 4 teams, I feel like they just got to win it at home.
Yep. I agree 100%. This game, I've had this game marked on my calendar for a while, and it is because of your predictions for the Big Ten preview this offseason. I'm so glad that you're standing by that prediction. I think you're an idiot. Maryland at Ohio State. I will give you the floor.
Yeah. Okay. So in our Big Ten predictions, I said Maryland was my sneaky sleeper 2020 TCU team. We recorded that in like mid-July, I would say.
Yep.
When you spend so much time researching, looking at stuff, talking about college football, I think I changed it towards the end. I was like, actually, I think Wisconsin's that team. But lest you forget that in that episode, I was ride or die Maryland. They're going to be the team of destiny. And that can't happen if they lose this game. Because, again, TCU was, like, undefeated, right? Like, went on this crazy run. And Maryland so far, 5-0, I've been correct. And they've looked really good. They're a really good 5-0. I think, in my opinion, they're as good as Oklahoma's 5-0, They struggled a little bit against Charlotte, but we know that Charlotte's actually a pretty sneaky team. Everything else, I've been really impressed by Maryland. Yeah, DMV legend. He's from Baltimore County. But, yeah, I mean, I like Tagovailoa. I'm not – like, I do think Ohio State's defense is electric. But last year we saw Ohio State, Maryland, and it was really, really close. I feel like those games are often really, really close. Last year's Ohio State team was definitely more electric offensively than this year's Ohio State team. I'm not sold on Kyle McCord. I think if it was a night game, I would definitely go Ohio State, but it's noon, and I feel like anything can happen. The spread is insane, so I'm absolutely taking Maryland's spread. I do not feel good about taking Maryland money line because of the spread, but I'm doing it because I got to ride or die for my guys that, I did it with TCU last year and it worked out for me every time. So I'm riding or dying with Maryland here.
I love it. I'm going to take Ohio State because they are just a better football team at every position, but except for maybe quarterback, which is the most important one. But I'm going to ride with Ohio State here. This game should be fun, though. I love the Maryland plus 19.5 pick. I'm going to be on that as well. This game is And I feel like Maryland plays them pretty close every year. Like there's always like some weird like fluky turnovers and a pick six and like a blocked kick.
Yeah, Ohio State normally they're like barely escaping against Maryland. That just is always what it feels like. It's like, oh my God, Maryland almost did it. Damn it.
Yep.
And then Ohio State wins, right? And like I can totally see that happening again this year. So 19.5 is too much, but yeah.
Yep. Can't wait for that game. We got to talk about a bounce back game and a ranked matchup. LSU at Missouri. Missouri's a 6.5-point dog. I was all over Missouri before LSU lost, and now that LSU has lost, I feel like there's no way they lose 2 in a row, right?
Yeah, is LSU going to be 3-3? It's a very interesting question. I personally think no way, Jose. But I don't love Missouri. I really don't. So yeah, I mean, I like LSU in this one.
Yeah, I think this is a very interesting matchup. Missouri's offense has looked like pretty good. We talked about it last week that like they have been shockingly good. Luther Burden, the wide receiver there, is outstanding. I think he's going to be a first-round draft pick whenever he's able to declare. I think he's a true sophomore. That being said, I don't see Brian Kelly losing 2 in a row. This is a noon kickoff. It's at Missouri. Like if you're gonna get right, it's got to be now, because if not, like that LSU schedule does not get any easier. So
yeah, and this is also, like you say, big game. Brian Kelly always chokes. I don't think you can chalk this up to being a big game. It's a noon game, overshadowed, in my opinion, by Ohio State, Maryland, and Oklahoma, Texas.
Yeah.
So, like, it's not like I feel like the media is not going to be that focused on it. Brian Kelly can take a deep breath and a sigh of relief that he can just go into Missouri. Again, Missouri is still bottom, like 4 or 5 in the SEC as far as adjusted efficiency ratings go. Their offense is good. Their defense, not so much. LSU's offense, we know what they can do. They can do a lot of very impressive things. I was surprised it was -6.5. I thought it was going to be more like +4, +3 for Missouri, because if it was, I was slamming LSU. But 6.5, I'll sprinkle on it or something, throw it in a parlay.
Yep, I'm staying away from that one as well, but I am picking LSU to win. Moving on to a great Pac-12 game, 3 o'clock kickoff, 13 Washington State at UCLA. I'm kind of surprised that UCLA isn't ranked, but like at the same time, I'm not. A one-loss Pac-12 team, but UCLA is the favorite in this game. This game's in the Rose Bowl. The environment's going to be your classic, October Rose Bowl environment, which is dead. But it ain't Pullman, Washington. And I think that's kind of what makes the difference here. Washington State is a great home team. They have been the last decade or so. That being said, I'm gonna take UCLA in this one. I think this is where, like, we've talked. I mean, it's been the topic of conversation all throughout this podcast that the Pac-12 is going to cannibalize itself. At some point, it's going to cannibalize itself. This is one of those games. If Cam Ward has been outstanding, like Heisman contender, outstanding.
Oh, 100%.
But all it takes is one game. And I think this is that one game.
Yeah. I'm super back and forth on this one. Again, you went UCLA, so I'm going to go Washington State just because I'm not in love with either side. I definitely really like Washington State this year, like a lot more than UCLA. But this feels like the type of game that UCLA just wins, like, handedly, in the same way that Oregon State at home handedly beat Utah, and Utah beat UCLA at home, and it's just like you were saying, the Pac-12 is just going to beat up on each other. But I'm going with Washington State just because I do think that they are still a little bit underrated in the sense that their offense is electric. They have that Josh Kelly kid who is, like, out of nowhere amazing. Cam Ward, honestly, also out of nowhere amazing. They have a good running game, good O-line, and I don't know. I don't love UCLA's offense or defense. I think they're still trying to figure it out. So, just give me a little upset here, a reverse upset in the sense that Washington State is the underdog, but they are obviously the better team.
Yeah, this could absolutely be another one of those games that comes down to whoever has the ball last. Should be a phenomenal game. I think that might be my favorite 3:30 kickoff game. Like it's between that and Bama Texas A&M.
Yeah,
but,
that's tough.
Well, North Carolina is at home against Syracuse. North Carolina is coming off of a bye. Syracuse is coming off of the loss to Clemson. I'm taking North Carolina in this one. If you give Mac Brown a bye week to prepare with Drake May, I like Syracuse, but I think eventually like we had to come back to reality a little bit, and Syracuse schedule was real easy before they got into their ACC play. So give me UNC to win. Covers 8.5 is a weird number, so I don't know if I'll take UNC to cover, but give me UNC outright here.
All right, yeah. So I mean, UNC, I like what you're saying about the bye. Syracuse was kind of like they were flying under the radar. Were almost ranked because they were undefeated, but they're still Syracuse. They're not as good as UNC. They weren't as good as Clemson. Clemson handled them on the road. I will say that Syracuse beat themselves up in the sense of they kind of pulled the Clemson. Like they bad mistakes, inexcusable turnovers, and
penalties. They killed themselves with penalties too.
Penalties, some bad coaching decisions and whatnot. And they ended up losing. So I still like Syracuse. I like some pieces on that offense. I like Schrader. I like Gradson, their wideout. So I think I actually would take Syracuse to cover here, but like you said, it's off the bye. UNC can game plan for 2 whole weeks against a team that I don't think is really like gonna change things up. They're not gonna like hide who they are.
Yeah.
And so the film is going to be what you're going to get, and I think UNC's a bit too talented to lose that game. So I'm going UNC as well.
Yep. Next game is Alabama and Texas A&M. This game is at Kyle Field. A lot of talk about Alabama, a lot of talk about Texas A&M. Max Johnson looked good last week in a spot against Arkansas where like they could have fallen apart, which I think Arkansas might not be very good. But Texas A&M looked pretty good.
Definitely not defensively. Arkansas, they don't have it this year defensively. So I don't know how to feel about Max Johnson. This is another really tough one. I think the spread's 2.5 now.
Wow, it moved. Damn.
Yeah, it moved in favor of Texas A&M. I don't know if it's any reverse line or anything. What was the reverse line movement last week?
Fuck.
I wonder if that ended up.
I can't remember. I don't know if that. Oh, it was Colorado, which hit. Yeah.
It was Colorado.
It was Colorado USC, which ended up hitting.
Yeah, they covered. Yeah. So again, you got to look out for that. I had Texas A&M winning this game for so long, and then they lose Connor Wegman, and I just like don't know what to do because I really still want to pick Texas A&M, and I might even change it right now, because I like Texas A&M for the same reasons of like they should have had them last year. Alabama is not as good as they were last year. Mm-hmm. Texas A&M got better. Now they have them at home. They're playing the same quarterback they played last year, right?
Yep.
Like they had Milroe last year, they have him again this year. Every part of me wants to take Texas A&M, but for the sake of the graphic and for the sake of just the demise of Jimbo and just getting outclassed by Saban and Saban not losing to his assistant coaches, give me Alabama. I also think that Texas A&M is going to be a public darling in this, so I'm going to go with Alabama.
Yeah, this was far and above the hardest pick I had to make on this graphic. There's no easy way to talk your way into either side here. I'm gonna stick with Texas A&M. I had Texas A&M competing in the SEC West before the season started. I think now they really have a chance. Like they have looked at everything in front of them and they said, "Hey, if we can win some of these games, like we have a shot. We have a very legitimate shot." The loss to Miami sucks, but that's out of conference. Like this is Conference play is what matters now, and I'm going to stick with Texas A&M. I think Max Johnson's good enough to be able to get an upset at home.
Yeah, and again, I like that a lot. If I, honest to God, am probably going to end up taking A&M money line just because I don't like Alabama.
Yeah.
I love watching that 3:30 SEC CBS game. You have to root for the underdog. That's just the rule. Unless you went to one of those schools, that's just the rule. So I'll be rooting for A&M, but I'm going with Alabama. For honestly, if you right now were like you want to switch, I'd be like,
yeah,
sure.
Yeah.
Like I think both of us are just like this so close, and the spread's almost a pick 'em for that reason. So
yep. A game that I am shocked is as close of a line as it is. Colorado at Arizona State. Arizona State's been feisty. They kept it close with Cal, and they kept it closer with USC, but this team isn't good. They lost to a really shitty Oklahoma State team. They lost to a really good, albeit group of 5 team in Fresno State, 29-0 or 28-0, whatever that score was, 29-0. Yeah, Colorado wins this game.
I know. I'm shocked by the spread as well. I'll talk about it a little later because it's in my favorite bets of the week. And it's square. It's a square bet to take Colorado here because this is the biggest trap line I've ever seen in my entire life. But I watched Cal Arizona State because I was super big on Cal last week for the reasons you just said. Arizona State did not look good in their first 4 games.
I was the only bet you lost last week.
Cal.
You were and-0 outside of that on your best bets. So
yeah, no, I did really well. I've been doing pretty well in college football outside of recently my game picks, but that has nothing to do with my betting. But yeah, Arizona State played pretty well, but it was nothing that I watched every Colorado game as well, and I'm just well, Colorado's the better team by far. So I'm just so confused. So I mean, yeah, just give me Colorado for sure, but it is square. Yep. I know that.
Another ranked SEC matchup, Kentucky finally being ranked and deservedly so. I had them in my top 25 last week, but with a win over Florida, they kind of solidified that they're one of the better teams in the East, at least for now. That being said, going into Sanford Stadium is not an easy task, especially against the Georgia Bulldogs. Georgia's a 14.5-point favorite. I think this is going to be a close, low-scoring game, but Georgia's going to win. Right?
Yeah, I mean, this is the thing about Georgia. We said this about them last week with Auburn, and Auburn easily could have won that game.
Mm-hmm.
Georgia just, and I think I've been saying this for 4+ weeks, that they cannot physically figure out how to play football until halfway through the second quarter or even later. And to the point where I think Kentucky first quarter or first half spread is amazing. I'm actually going to add that to my best bets because it's no surprise the spread's only 14.5 either. I don't know how to feel about Georgia. I think they just have one of the easiest schedules I've ever seen for a Power 5, team. And I don't care that they're playing a ranked team in Kentucky. Kentucky is not going to finish the year ranked. They have Ole Miss down the line. I don't think Ole Miss will be ranked by then. It's just, it's annoying. Yep. Georgia's annoying me. So, I mean, I'm going to go with Georgia. But, yeah, I like this to be a kind of the same thing we've seen all year where, South Carolina was up 14-3. Georgia wins. Auburn tied 10-10. Georgia wins. Kentucky, they'll be 13-7. They'll be down or up for all I know.
Yep. The first half line +7.5. So I do like Kentucky +7.5 there, but I'm going to take Georgia to win. Notre Dame at Louisville. Louisville's a 6.5-point dog here. I don't think this lines up very well for Louisville. I don't know if you watched that Friday night game against NC State. Jack Plummer threw one of the worst interceptions I've ever seen in the end, in the red zone. He has been super up and down all year. I think Louisville is 5-0 because of their schedule and not because of their talent. And for that reason, I'm going to ride with Notre Dame. I'm not betting on my own team. However, -6.5, I would get that number before it goes up.
Interesting. I'm kind of viewing this in a different light as like this is a little bit of a bounce back game for Louisville. You nailed it last week when you had the under in Louisville NC State. It was a super high line. It totaled at 23. You were totally on the nose. NC State's offense was not good. Louisville had to escape. They were down 10-0 at half. But I think, yeah, Louisville just did not play a good game. We've seen them, throttle some teams, some not terrible teams like, Georgia Tech and whoever this year. I don't hate that 6.5. If it goes up to like 8, I really like that for Louisville. I'm going to go with Notre Dame because I definitely do think that their defense is going to stymie Louisville. But I see this as kind of like a get right, get back game for the Cardinals.
Yeah, and this is another game I wouldn't be scared to go or to lean under on at 51.5. Arkansas at Ole Miss. Ole Miss is an 11.5 point favorite. Do you have any idea what's going on with this Arkansas team? Because I have no idea.
No. Like, they put up a damn good fight against LSU.
Yes, and then, like a damn good fight.
Yeah, and then not so much last week. I think it's really just like fade every Arkansas game because you're just not going to be able to predict it because they just don't have like an identity. So just too much randomness is going to happen. Like, I don't know. Arkansas could go out and win this game somehow, or they could lose 42-0. I genuinely don't know. I'm picking Ole Miss because they're at home, and it's just the logical, smart thing to do in this situation. But I'm not going to bet on it.
Yeah, I'm picking Ole Miss to win. Arkansas, this portion of their schedule is brutal. They've had LSU, Texas A&M, Ole Miss, and then they have Alabama next week. I mean, that's just a brutal run of games. It gets so much easier after that point. But they're playing a lot of physical football teams right now, and I just don't see any relief in sight. So give me the Rebels in that one. A game that I put on here that I am sneaky excited for. It's an 8:00 kickoff. Fresno State at Wyoming. Wyoming has played teams well all season. They beat Texas Tech at Wyoming. Texas played Texas pretty damn close earlier this season.
It was tied going into the fourth.
Yeah, it was tied going into the fourth quarter. Like, that's Fresno State, I think, has a chance to go undefeated this year, but I think this week is their toughest game the rest of the regular season. Going into the altitude in Wyoming, a 5.5 point spread. I'm going to pick Fresno State. No, I'm not. I talked myself out of it just like I want to say Fresno State. And I think that like the ranking and talking about it, like Wyoming is such a tough place to play. Give me the Cowboys. Give me Wyoming.
Yeah, I'm definitely. I actually love it. I love Wyoming here. I watched the Fresno State Nevada game just because it was on so late on Saturday, and I was just like, you know what? I'm not doing anything. Let me just toss this on. I couldn't even find the Washington Arizona game. I don't think it was on YouTube TV, but Fresno State Nevada was. So I was like, football's on. Fresno State looked like I was like shocked because it was my first time watching them this year. I was like, damn, they do not look good. I look up Nevada's schedule. Nevada's terrible.
Yeah, they're bad.
They're probably the worst team in the Mountain West. And now Fresno State has to go into Wyoming, a Wyoming team that it's been a while since they've fielded like a really good competitive team since like the Josh Allen days, I guess. And I think they're excited. I think they think they're better than Fresno State. They know they're underdogs. This was like a sneaky like game day option if Wyoming ended up like pulling off a win against Texas or something. Both teams are ranked. That would have been awesome. But yeah, I really like Wyoming. If you want to buy points, make it like a touchdown, I would throw a ton on that.
Yeah, this difference in elevation is insane in this game. Fresno State Stadium is 330 feet above sea level. Wyoming is insanely. It's the highest above sea level stadium in the country. It is 7,215 feet above sea level.
Oh my!
Yeah, it's the.
I mean, that's crazy. I think these guys play like every year, so I'm sure Fresno State is well aware, well prepared.
Yeah, fair.
But that is that. Even if you're prepared, that has its effects. If you're not playing in that environment every day, that's crazy. That's 7,000 feet. Is that higher than Mile High Stadium?
Yep.
Wow.
Yeah. Last game, late night, Pac-12 action. Oregon State at Cal. Cal has shown a decent amount of life this year. Oregon State, obviously a tough loss against Washington State earlier, but I still think Oregon State has a shot to get right. Like, they beat Utah. Like, they're solid. What are your thoughts on the Beavers? Because I need to hear. Are we starting to come around on DJU? Like it?
No, we're not. And actually, yeah, I don't think he can make some big throws, but he's always been able to do that. He's just not. He's not like he's just not a good quarterback. He's fine, I suppose, especially out in the Pac-12. I was kind of impressed because Utah is a good defense, and he was able to do some impressive things. But his stat line was the most DJU stat line ever, right? It was like 15 for 26, 200 yards, touchdown, and a pick.
Stop. 14 for 25, 204 yards, a touchdown, and a pick. You nailed that, dude. That was insane.
Well, that's because that's the DJU stat line. That's just what he is. That's probably what he'll be against California. Their Oregon State's running game is that offense. They have two really, really good running backs. I actually don't think California is that great defending the run, but I'm fading Oregon State the whole season. I've decided because as a DJU loather, I'm just going to take the other team. I also like California. Like if Oregon State plays Arizona or Arizona State or Stanford or something, they're not going to be on the game picks probably, yep. Right? So the fact that California is snuck in here on the game picks, single-digit spread, they're at home. I doubt they're going to get that much money on them from the public. I definitely like their spread. I'm going to take them for the graphic. Admittedly, foolishly. Like I'm almost certain I'm wrong, but I'm going to do it just to fade the curse of DJU.
Fair enough. Before we get into the best bets, we always read some of the hot takes from our listeners every week. We have a couple of good ones this week. I already addressed the one that they said a 2-loss team would make the college football playoff. This one I want to direct specifically at you. Clemson is a better 2-loss team than LSU is. True or false?
I mean, technically speaking, Clemson played Florida State better than LSU did, right? Clemson was a toothpick away from winning. LSU lost by 20. I don't agree with that right now. Again, I have watched every Clemson game. I've dissected every Clemson game. I think they're pretty much right neck and neck. I have LSU ranked 33rd. I have Clemson ranked 36th. I don't know. I don't think it's worth kind of debating aggressively because I just think they're both better than 2 losses, but like kind of equal in skill, talent, and ability.
I don't hate that. I saw some people saying that Clemson should be ranked like, yeah, sure, like not really. I don't think so, but
no, I don't think we deserve to be ranked. Definitely not. We have 2 losses. Well, I guess LSU's ranked, but I don't think LSU should be ranked, right?
So fair. There we go.
Yeah, that's my Maryland should be ranked over LSU.
And then last one, when Oklahoma beats Texas this weekend, people will start talking about them as serious playoff contenders.
I mean, I think that's obvious that if they win against Texas, they're serious playoff contenders. Even right now, before that game, I posted on my Instagram the efficiency rankings according, FPI what they have in the top 10, and the total efficiency combined for offense, defense, and special teams. Oklahoma's ranked fourth. Texas is ranked ninth. Now, again, that's a metric that I really like as far as like total efficiency, but FPI is pretty flawed in other ways. So, but all it does is it shows you that Oklahoma is actually pretty good. They're 5-0 against the spread for a reason.
Yep.
They just haven't played anyone, so no one's really talking about them. And this is where we find out. So, yeah, if Oklahoma beats Texas, my friend, you are correct.
Yep.
And even if they lose, I can see them winning out and making the Big 12 championship game and having another chance to beat Texas and getting into the college football playoff that way. So, yeah, they are contenders already, in my opinion.
Yep, I agree. If you guys want us to talk about, whatever you want to talk about on the podcast, let us know. All of our, social media links are in the description of the video or the description of the podcast. If you listen to the audio version, tweet us, DM us, talk shit in our Instagram comments, do all those things. We absolutely love to talk about it and love to get your guys' input as well. You guys, you are just as much of a part of the podcast as we are. So go give those responses. Make sure you like and subscribe and do all those things. That being said, we got to throw in the SeatGeek game of the week. If you had to go to one of these games in person, and I'm gonna go ahead and say you can't pick the Red River Shootout like in the Cotton Bowl. I'm not gonna let you pick that one. That's a cop out. But if you had to go to one of these games, which one would you most want to go to this weekend?
Yeah, I mean, I'd go to Texas A&M, the field house. I would. I mean, they have a really rowdy crowd, great stadium. They always are electric. For the Bama game, this is one that they know they can win. So I think that'd be really fun.
Yeah, I mean, Kyle Field, one of the largest stadiums in the country, would love to go there. If you use promo code SMASHHITSPORTS, you get $20 off to your first purchase at SeatGeek, which would drop those tickets from $221 down to $201. A little bit more affordable on the wallet. But if you guys are going to any college football games this weekend, make sure you use that promo code on SeatGeek. Get $20 off your first purchase. Save a little bit of money because we could all use that.
Yeah, I mean, if you get $20 off, you can use that $20 to get food, drinks, basically free of charge.
Bro, I thought you were going to transition. What do we do? You could use that $20 on these best bets to make even more money to pay for the rest of your tickets.
Well, or that. Or
yeah, that's
that, what a transition that was.
But we went 6-1 last week. Like, what do we?
That's true. We did well.
Yeah,
we did well.
I'll do. Yeah, you want to do yours first? Or you want to do mine first?
You can rip through yours.
We'll rip through mine real quick. We start with a Friday night one. So we had a Friday night one last week with NC State Louisville. We have another one this week. It's Kansas State -11. They're coming off of a bye week. Chris Kleiman's a hell of a coach, especially off the bye. Kansas State 3-1 against the spread against FBS teams. Oklahoma State is 1-3 against the spread and against FBS teams. The only game that Kansas State didn't cover was against 5-0 Missouri, where they lost outright. But they have beat inferior teams badly, and Oklahoma State is a very, very inferior team to what this Kansas State squad has. So give me K-State in this one.
I'll be riding that.
Texas -6. Already talked about this one, but I do think the Longhorns win that game and cover. Iowa -2.5 might be my favorite play on the entire slate. Iowa is 3-1 against the spread as a favorite. They've held every team except for Penn State under 16 points. Iowa is 3-0 at home, 2-1 against the spread at home. Purdue's 2 wins are against a 2-3 Illinois team, who Illinois was a field goal away from Toledo to being 1-4, and a 2-3 Virginia Tech team. They've beaten nobody. I don't believe in this Purdue team. Their defense is terrible. Iowa covering 3 points at home. Like, Iowa is a good home team. It's at Kinnick Stadium. It's a 3:30 kickoff. Give me Iowa. I am all over that. That is my play of the weekend.
Yeah, that's a really suspicious line. Like, I feel like Purdue's just really bad. So
part of it is because Cade McNamara is out for the rest of the year. That being said, what the hell has Cade McNamara done that's made a goddamn bit of difference in this offense? Like, you could have told me it was Spencer Petras at quarterback, and I've been like, yeah, it's still the same team. It is what it is. So
what's the over-under? Like fucking 18?
I think it's like right around 40-ish. maybe like 30,
Okay.
like somewhere between like 36 and 40. It's not very high. And then my last bet of the weekend, I may seem crazy for this one, but we did kind of talk about it. Kentucky plus 14.5. Kentucky is 4-1 against the spread. Georgia is 0-4-1 against the spread this year. They have not covered a single spread all season. Both teams are top 25 in the country defensively. I just think this is a low-scoring game that ends up being close. And since 2021, in Georgia's national championship run era, Kentucky's 20-10-1 against the spread. They're one of the best teams in the country against the spread. 12-6 in the SEC. So, give me Kentucky as a 2-touchdown dog in this one.
And going into mine, I'm also taking Kentucky. I'm going to take their first half.
Yep. And I love that as well.
We talked about it, right? It's just the fact that Georgia comes out of the gates sloppy, slow, not good, no motivation. Eventually, I'm sure that will change, but I don't think it's going to be this week. If it is, whatever. But I like that. There's a lot of value there to give Kentucky a touchdown. Georgia hasn't really been up. They were barely up a touchdown against Ball State.
Yep.
So, Colorado -4. This is a mega trap line. Unless you look at it in the way that I'm looking at, as Vegas is trying to bait the Sharps into ASU because Colorado's lost a ton of publicity, and it's a decoy, and Colorado actually wins huge because the Sharps and all the money goes to Arizona State. So that's my hope. But we'll see. Wyoming plus 5.5. Again, we talked about this a little bit, so I won't really go over it. Maryland plus 18.5. Explained. And then Marshall plus 6.5. Underrated. Marshall's, they haven't lost a game since last October. Like, they're the reverse Bears. The Chicago Bears haven't won since last October. Marshall has not lost a game since last October.
That's insane.
I know. No one knows this. They're undefeated.
Why is nobody talking
October.
about that?
That's what I'm saying. And now they're getting 6.5 points, but there's no public media focus on this. So there's no, it's not like a trap. This is like a true under the radar line in which NC State's really not good. I think -6.5 Power 5 team against a team in Marshall that people think isn't that good. People are going to be all over NC State. So yeah, give me Marshall plus 6.5.
I love that. I love that bet. I'm going to be riding that. If you guys follow along on the bets, let us know. The goal is to, give a little more money in your pocket. But yeah. And this should be a good week of college football, dude. I'm so ready. We are in the thick of it. We get to learn things.
Every week's a good week this time of the year. So
can't wait. If you guys like this stuff, make sure you hit that subscribe. Be a friend, tell a friend, right? The best, I've had people ask, and they've DM'd, they've been like, hey, do you have a Patreon or anything we can support you guys? I don't want to take your money. I'm going to be honest. We want to set ourselves up to build a great community around college football. And the best way that you can help us do that is to be a friend, tell a friend, send this to somebody that you think would really enjoy, talking a little college football. So with that being said, Nick, let's go win some damn money this weekend. Let's watch all the college football. It's October. Have yourself the pumpkin spice latte and a bowl of chili, and we'll see you in the next one.
All right. Cheers.